LFOD 91.5. Make sure you turn it high.
LFOD, Live Free or Die Radio. You already know.
LFOD Radio, Live Free or Die Radio. Bang.
LFOD Radio, Live Free or Die.
You are now tuned in to LFOD Radio, Live Free or Die. I am your host, Uncle Sam, and tonight I am going to be joined by Durkin. He is a DJ, producer, a veteran of the New England hip-hop scene. In addition to DJing, you may know him from his work with Black L and more recently Maka. They've released 2 projects via Fool's Gold and the single Forward this year. He's going to be joining us to talk about all of that and more. If you've been tuned in, you know that I'm somewhere across the country right now. We recorded this months in advance, but we're dropping this for you this February. So if you want to check in where I'm at, you can follow at LFOD Life. We'll be sharing the story there, linking up with artists along the way, getting some more music for these LFOD mixes. A-Ball and Amanda couldn't make it, but they do send their best. If you're listening on a broadcast, you can also hear past episodes on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Stitcher, LFODradio.com, or pretty much any other podcast app. We have over 160 other episodes up now. You can subscribe to get new episodes right away. Or you can follow us at LFOD Radio everywhere or LFOD Life on Facebook. One time I'm going to shout out all our patrons and our sponsors, specifically the record company, for having us here, letting us use their space. And first episode, we get to say this, Pavement Coffee. They hit us with the caffeine pyramid. So I'm about to be kiting all day long. Shout out to Pavement Coffee, Newberry Street, and Skull Candy as well for hooking us up with some headphones. We'll be back after this with Durkin. All right, we're back, LFOD Radio. All those records were sent to us, submissions at LFODradio.com. So if you're an artist tuned in, wondering how we got them, that's what you need to do. Hit us there. That last record was from Durkin and Maka off their new album, Waterproof. I am joined right now by Durkin. What's happening?
What's going on? I'm here.
How are you?
Feeling good.
Yeah, you just rocked a nice mix there.
Yeah. Kicked it off with a little mix of some of my stuff, some of my favorite records, new stuff, old stuff, a little bit of everything. So
yeah, we love it. We love it. That's up now on YouTube, Mixcloud.
Crazy.
Everywhere.
In the future.
Hashtag LFOD mix. It's dope. We usually do the mix after because when we were doing them in the studio or live, that just made more sense. But we did it before this time, so it's cool. We get to talk about what you had in there ahead of time. Do you want to talk about the mix right off the bat, or do you want to get to that down the line?
Yeah, I mean, when you told me, prepare, about 20 minutes of music, I started thinking about, the fact that usually I'd say, what I prefer is to play for, 3 or 4 hours, which is kind of not the normal way most people play it. I think, a lot of artists or producers are typically playing, hour-long headlining sets or even shorter than that, maybe 90 minutes. But my background for years has been going to a club, opening and closing. And so I was trying to give that same feel in 20 minutes. So I'll play anything from, hip hop and R&B to Afrobeats and dance hall to, classic house and, disco. So I try to do a little bit of all of that in a 20-minute block and make sure there's some of the new records from Maka and me in there as well.
Yeah, I think you touched on just about everything.
Yeah, I think so.
I definitely think so. Well, while we're talking about the club stuff, so you did kind of, I guess, initially, I would say you made your name as a club DJ here for sure.
Yeah, I'd say, in Boston, a lot of my, I was kind of out and a part of both a club scene, a sort of alternative club scene that was separate from, bottle service, top 40 clubs, and sort of carved out a place for myself there. And in parallel was, involved in the hip hop world here, which felt very separate from the club scene, but eventually kind of merged. So it was just kind of fun for me because I sort of, had a double life within music where I was making, hip hop and doing hip hop shows at Black L and, DJing clubs, but, the music didn't cross over a whole lot. But in the past, few years, it really has, which has been really fun. I've been able to merge a lot more of my production into my like sets in a club.
That's going to feel good.
Yeah, it feels great.
Because, you're a good example of the many different sides of Boston hip hop, because a few years ago you could be super involved in one side of the scene and they might not even know you existed here, yet you're making noise internationally, nationally, all over.
I think that's just the nature of, like, Boston is small, but it has a lot of like talent turnover, I think is why it starts to feel a little bit separate. It's not, I think just a lot of people tend to come and go, whether they're coming and going because of school or because of a job or whatever. You just find that people kind of come in and make an impact and, maybe move to LA or something like that. And so I think like little pockets develop around like sort of friend groups and sort of like a step beyond that. And it kind of happens and it's a moment, and then things change because some folks leave or, tastes change. So yeah, it is kind of an interesting place in that way. But it means there's a lot going on. I mean, I'm pretty happy all the time if I'm like looking for something interesting to do or, somewhere to play. It seems to be I can always kind of find something new and something interesting here.
Yeah, that's the thing, is you're always getting a new flavor introduced as well. So I do know you originally for New Hampshire reasons.
Yeah, right.
But you have a long history on the scene here, as you've outlined a bit. Could you just break down your journey for folks that don't know the full?
Sure.
I mean, his Cliff Notes version.
It's a long journey. I've been in the city or in the Boston area, for like 15 years. Came here for school. Kind of just was going out all the time, going to as many shows as I could when I was in school, and went to did a couple internships, got some money. Bought DJ equipment. It was something that I had kind of learned how to do in high school, but I just couldn't figure out how to make it happen when I was a teenager. But, by the time I was halfway through school, I was able to buy some turntables and a laptop and started like, trying to DJ again and get myself out there, especially once I was, 21 and I could start going to clubs and I didn't just have to go to like underage big shows. So I just started like hanging around and meeting folks in the scene and like telling them that I could DJ. Hey, I can DJ, and somebody finally gave me a chance because a friend of mine either canceled or got sick and they needed somebody to fill in last minute. And I was like, yeah, let me fill in. And because I had learned in high school in my bedroom, basically, I was at least able to hold my own for a little bit at this small bar in Cambridge called Zuzu. And that allowed me to kind of get a foothold in. And so in college, I was doing like a Sunday night party with a handful of guys that are still, good friends of mine. Breck One, Ghost Dad, who's now like a visual artist, and my friend Chris Devlin, who was part of the kind of Spank Rock crew. And we would all be kind of doing these Sunday nights together. And that's what kind of developed like my first residency here. After that, I was producing for Black L. He needed a DJ. So we started performing together and doing this kind of like 2-man show where I'd be beat juggling and like mixing in different types of music for the show, doing his backing vocals. And so met a lot of people on the hip hop side there. Years passed, I started doing my own production that was sort of solo and more electronic oriented because I've always loved, hip hop and electronic music sort of equally. And that's when I really, was able to like do music full time and for a while. Was doing a mix of shows, performing my own music, shows with Black L, club residencies, and everything in between. And that sort of led to, production for people like Michael Christmas and eventually connecting with Maka, doing a couple records with him, which were really sort of
link up.
I actually met Maka through Black L. So Black L and I used to do these sessions at my parents' like beach house on Cape Cod in the winter. So we would drive down there with speakers and a computer. We'd bring another producer, Victor Ads, who's a good friend of mine. And we would just set up sort of 2 little mini studios in this beach house and just record all day and all night for like 3-4 days. And
Sounds
so
awesome.
people would, it's great. It was great. And Maka, we convinced Maka to drive down one night, and we did a couple of songs, on the fly. And one song we did just together was more of like a dance record, more along the lines of like the records that we did together. And we thought we should do more of these. And, I was thinking about it more a few days later, and I just texted him like, let's do an album, and he said, okay, sure. So, that's kind of how it started. I think that was like at the beginning of 2017. And by the summer we had an EP. And that was that. But we got along really quickly, I think, because we had a lot of similar interests outside of music. Like we were both really into food. Half the time, like he'd come over, we'd like cook food and make like music in the same sort of day. But yeah, mostly we just kind of hit it off and we're on the same wave in terms of like what we were trying to do and type of music we liked. So it just came together quickly, But yeah, and sent that to Nick at Fool's Gold, who I've known for years, but would always send demos to, and he'd always respond, but he wouldn't always say yes. He actually almost never did. And I just happened to get an email back from him a few days after sending him the demos and following up and asking him, hey, what do you think? What do you think? And he just sent me an email that said, let's do it. And I was like, oh my God, great. We signed this record. That led to the 2 records that we did, Another Island and Waterproof with Fool's Gold.
That's what's up, man.
And so, yeah, and that's where I'm at now, DJing less, not grinding it out, playing clubs 4 nights a week, focusing on production, focusing on really only doing things now that really mean something and are really special to me. So I'm, I'll still do a party once in a while at Middlesex and Cambridge. I'll still, work on production for different folks. I'm working on a solo record, but really focusing on if I'm doing something and putting it out into the world that I'm going to be proud of it in like 10 years. And that's how I feel about everything I've done in the past. And that's sort of my guiding principle now.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
And you said something that I don't want to be lost on people at the beginning. Someone canceled, you were ready. And
Yeah.
that's how this whole thing started.
100%.
Stay ready, stay available.
Always.
Because you never know.
Yeah. You got to be prepared for success, man. Like people often are prepared for failure, but they're not prepared for like their plans to work out, and they don't know what they're going to do for the second, third, fourth step, and even for example, like we had a conversation off mic about like having clean versions of your songs.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, like it's extra work, but when you get that phone call that says, do you have a clean version of this song to drop into a commercial or to, do some kind of cool placement, and you don't have it and it's going to take you 3 days to do it, that opportunity is out the door. Or like if you don't have your gear ready and you're not putting yourself out there and someone calls you up with that opportunity and, you're like on vacation or you're, whatever, doing
Right.
something else, like it's just going to come and go. Like, and that's
moves
how
quickly.
all my best opportunities were, last minute stuff. Like all the opportunities that helped me level up were like little twists of fate that I was able to take advantage of.
I'm glad you were. I'm glad you were prepared.
Yeah.
No, this industry moves so quickly, and it's 24/7. You never know when you're going to get the call. And
Yep.
You want to be able to say yes.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So you said you're doing things you care about. Is Live a Little one of those?
Yeah. So that's sort of, and this is what I'm talking about where like, I'm trying not to like take myself too seriously, and I'm trying to only do things that really kind of come together the way I want them to come together. And so Live a Little is sort of this party that I'll throw once in a while at Middlesex Lounge, which is, in my opinion, like one of the last sort of true nightclub experiences in Boston that isn't so over the top with bottle service, and it's not just a bar with music. It's a club. It exists strictly as a club. It's basically just like a giant black box to blast music and dance.
Yeah.
There's no VIP. There's no, once you're inside and you're there to dance. Like, and so like Live a Little for me started just as sort of like a not a joke, but like kind of like a tongue-in-cheek name for this party that I'll throw once in a while. And for me, it's starting to become a little bit more of like a brand that I'd like to associate some music releases with. And it's really rooted in my love for like positive, fun dance music. Not, music that's like too aggressive or music that's too sad, like trying to kind of like bring in like true positive music. And that's where I'll post like playlists from those nights and show people like, come here if you want to feel good, dance to lots of different types of music, but feel good, interact with people in a positive way, have a nice time, like, and not deal with too much kind of posturing or negativity or, flashing money or anything like that.
Yeah. And so just for people tuned in, Live a Little is spelled with ones instead of I's.
Yeah. I think I did that just because I wanted people, if I ended up putting more into the world with that, I wanted people to be able to Google it. But,
yeah,
I just remember actually my parents would use that phrase like, if someone would be like hesitant to like do something fun or like overthinking something, like, okay, you're about to have a cup of coffee and you're putting skim milk in it and you're not putting half and half in it. Like, live a little, like have some half and half. Like, it's not going to kill you. Like, just relax. Like, it's not a big deal.
It's a classic. I don't know. Is it a New England phrase?
I don't know.
Might be. It's a classic for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely like
live a little.
Yeah, right. It's a little bit like relax. Like, come on. Like, have fun. Like, it's not a big deal. I don't know if other people say that, but it's it's kind of an ethos for me about like when I go and DJ, like, and when I'm, making music. So I thought I would kind of like put a name to it and sort of like put myself out there a little bit that way.
I like it. Well, I want to say that you are accomplishing your goals in that respect. A-Ball couldn't be here, but one thing he sent was his comment was he was really struck by the positive and uplifting nature of your music.
Yeah.
And
it's conscious choice. Actually it's not. Like I've tried to sit down and make like, I think as a producer, like people are often asking for different stuff. Like I want something that sounds like this. And I honestly try, and it always ends up just sounding like my stuff. And
it's not a bad thing.
I know, but I mean, I can't make like hardcore, like scary sounding music. Like it just never comes out that way. Those aren't the records I gravitate towards in a club. Like I don't know what it is. It's just, stuff that's melodic, stuff that's positive, like love songs, like songs that make you feel confident, like instrumental songs that just like make you feel something. Like that's what I'm after with music.
Yeah. Well, you're on it, dude. Even when I finished, I was listening to Waterproof earlier, and Spotify, the next thing you put up was One Good Thing About Music.
Oh, nice.
It went straight into Bob Marley.
Great.
I was like, all right, man.
I love it. It's working. The system works. The algorithm works.
The algorithm gets it,
yeah.
dude. That's...
Yeah, I love to see, like, if my own music comes up, like, what are they going to associate with it? I think they're usually pretty on point, actually.
Yeah. The robots get you.
Yeah, they've got me. I mean, hopefully people are feeding them the right info. I mean, I don't know what that's based off of, our fans, or just... I have no idea. Like, I don't know if you saw... people would do like those reports from their Spotify listening.
The Wrapped.
Yes. And it would say like what genres of music you listen to, but they clearly have these genre names that like no one uses.
I love pop rap.
Yeah, right. But it would say like retro wave or like little things. And people were like, a lot of people would be posting and saying like, what even is this? What is cloud house? Like,
yeah.
And I'd love to know, like behind the curtain, like what is my music referred to, like in some database somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know what.
Maybe I can ask.
It.
It's like asking for your Uber rating.
Yeah, I'll bet you could find it.
Yeah.
I saw on a music one, someone said, apparently I listen to like Minnesota hip hop. And they're like, that must be like Atmosphere. Is he his own? Are they their own genre now?
Minneapolis hip hop. I mean, it's a very particular flavor,
So yeah, shout out to Spotify, I guess.
I mean, I'm not trying to give them too much credit.
Yeah, no,
they pay me absolutely nothing for my music. So
buy a T-shirt if you can,
right.
or do something for the artist. So you said, I know you're not direct. You're just doing what you feel. Do you want to give any hints at what people might expect from Durkin in the future?
Yeah, I have like I have another EP that's basically done right now, and I'm just trying to figure out how to roll it out. I just don't really know what the plan is with it, but the music's done and it's a solo record. So I haven't really put out a solo record, I think, since like 2015. And I was doing more like short, like I did like a 4-song EP and then like a 2-song single. And then it was all about either production for Black L, track or two with Mikey Christmas, and then the Maka record. So I haven't done one that I actually own. I still want like vocalists on it. And I already have tracks with, vocals from Latrell James, vocals from Maka, and I'm just kind of like putting that together. But it's in the spirit of the Live a Little stuff, which is leaning a little bit more dance.
Those two guys are both on that wave too.
Yeah. Yeah. They both crushed it on the songs that we have. I can't wait to put it out. I'm just very conscious now that you can't just like slide music out anymore. Like I used to be able to. I would just try to put a song out on SoundCloud every month, and that was working for me. And then one day that just kind of stopped working, not just for me, like for everybody. And if you're not thinking through the rollout and thinking through the technology limitations and, like challenges with social media or with distributors or whatever, like it's just going to not be heard.
There's a lot of noise.
Yeah. And there's just a lot of roadblocks that, for a while there was sort of a free for all with all kinds of music on a platform like mostly SoundCloud. It just doesn't really, the community's not there anymore. The platform really isn't what it was. And it's a little bit unclear to me like what the best way to put this music out is. But,
yeah.
But I'm excited. I feel really good about it. I also didn't want to put it out in the winter because I just find that can be kind of tough.
Especially you want people. Seasonal depression is real.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are going through it.
Yeah. So maybe I should be trying to help those people out, but
it
honestly,
could, but you're going to make people dance with it,
Yeah. I definitely think of the winter as like time to do work and put your head down and plan. And
right.
I'd love to have something out in the spring or early summer. That's kind of what I'm thinking about now.
If you plan the rollout, you could drop it in the winter, early spring, and just keep it going into the summer.
Yeah. That's the other thing. It's like, do you put a bunch of music out at once? Do you put them out one at a time? That it's a tough call. And it's, for me, I just try to focus on the music first and put something together that's cohesive, but I need to focus on how I'm going to share that with people. And it's tougher than making music for sure.
You need a TikTok challenge.
Yeah.
In 2020.
I don't know
TikTok thing. I don't know if
I know about TikTok. I don't know how that works. Do you think, I just send like those kids like a crisp $20 bill and a link to my Spotify, and do they just like do a crazy dance and that's all it takes? Who knows?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Or there's some label rep who has like a bunch of children's contact info, which is weird, but they're definitely doing that.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the weird part of that.
It's getting stranger and stranger. But you're an organic guy. It'll work organically, I feel. So
yeah.
I don't think you need to have a crazy.
Yeah, I just like I'd like for the project to manifest itself in the physical world as well.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the seasonality thing. Like if I'm going to do a party or something in person, might as well wait until it's nice out.
Yeah. Because, why not?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back with more after this. You were tuned into LFOD Radio. We got Durkin in the building. All right, we are back, LFOD Radio. We got Durkin with us.
What's up? We're
What's
back.
Up? Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about your production.
Sure.
The evolution of your sound.
Yep.
From Black L to Maka and all the work in between. So we know you want it to sound, you want to embed goodness in your music.
Yeah.
And, uplift. And it seems like you have, certain sounds and instruments that you trend for, but it's very like ranging overall.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of different flavors within that.
Yeah. Hasn't always served me super well that I make tons of different types of music. I'd say like the stuff I gravitate towards is really rooted a lot in dance music. Growing up, a lot of what I listened to was like electronic music and dance music, especially like kind of 90s, like electronic music. So, like that sort of like Korg M1 piano sound I use a lot. A lot of those kind of like chord progressions and stuff I use a lot. But also just listen to a lot of underground rap, like a lot of sample-based music that was like very warm and sort of like imperfect. And so I try to make sure what I'm doing has sort of a looseness to it and like atmosphere and room sound. And, you know, I'm layering weird kind of field recordings over stuff, and I'm, you know, keeping in weird ad libs and conversations during the recording process. Like a lot of the Maka records like have little bits and pieces like that. And yeah, I really like working closely with artists instead of sending beats out, because all my good records I made with the artists in the room, and I'm kind of like sampling their voice, or we're really kind of like going deep into like how we can make the song unique. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I tend to want to make sure like I tend to work fairly quickly, but I try to make sure that there's like some unique kind of textures and sounds throughout everything that I'm doing. But as far as the variety stuff, it's just from DJing. Like when you, again, if you're playing 4 or 5 hours in a club, like I can't just play all the same tempo or all the same even era of music, or I'm going to go nuts and the people are going to hate me. So,
oh, dude, I was at a wedding recently where he did do the same tempo the whole time, and
nuts.
I was losing it early because I picked up on it, but then you saw it hit the whole dance floor eventually. Even people who don't know time, they were like, "Wait a minute."
Yeah, I mean, so it's hard to synthesize all those influences, you know, subconsciously. Like you're just kind of jumping around a little bit. Like there isn't one tempo I'm married to, or like one rhythm. But you know, the consistency is sort of that, like the roots and sort of house music and R&B and hip hop, like that, and a little bit of kind of Caribbean music or you know, Afro beats kind of coming out of places like Nigeria and, you know, through the UK and things like that. But yeah, it's been a little bit of a journey, and I think, you know, you listen to these Maka records, you can kind of hear all the different parts of like how my music has evolved into what it is now.
It feeds back. Does it feed back and forth into the live aspect? Like you spin it, you might figure out, okay, and you know, bring something you learned from Middlesex, for example, back in, and vice versa.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, you know what works. You know what types of drops work, or what types of sounds, or you know, like, well, I'm not really. This record really doesn't hold up because when I play it back to back with some new, like Drake record, it sounds flat. You know, like I've got to go back to the drawing board. But I always think of, so like the person that made me want to DJ when I was a teenager was Fatboy Slim. So Fatboy Slim was a DJ. Brother. Yeah, he was a DJ for like 10 years before he was even really like he was DJing for a while before he was like making the music that he's known for. And he was playing a wide mix of music. He was playing like acid house, he was playing old soul records, he was playing like American hip hop, and he needed records to stitch all those sounds together, and that's where his music came from. It was like, okay, these are like 3 or 4 types of music I like. How can I kind of combine them? And then I can use these records to kind of bridge between all these different sounds. That's how I look at my records. So I know I want to play house music, R&B, new hip hop, classics. Like, how can I kind of make records that sound at home next to all of that stuff? That's like what's on my mind now when I sit down to make music.
That's awesome. You're like a bridge.
Yeah, I think so.
Audio bridge. Yeah, that's awesome. I do like too that you said you work with the artist in the room, because I also like that you like to drop full bodies of work with artists as well. I have experienced Maka's creative process briefly at the Shift when he hopped in and did a track with Brilla. He seems to work very fast.
Yeah, he does.
And just when you think of like someone who catches a vibe and then puts it out, that's what I get.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about what your guys' process is?
I mean, for us, the way we were working, so it varied. So like at one point we both had similar schedules and we were both living nearby each other. So we would go and just make a song from scratch. Like he'd show up in the morning, we'd make a pot of coffee, you know, hang out for a bit. And then he would either have maybe like an idea, or he produces too. So he might come with like a little keyboard loop or something. But sometimes we just start from nothing, and I'd be on a piano playing something, he would like it. We start building around that. And as I'm building the beat, he's sort of like ad-libbing like a melody and then filling in words. And then eventually he'll say like, okay, like record me. And we'll just kind of start doing it piece by piece. But it happens sort of continuously from when we start. And we kind of had a routine where we'd start around like 10 or 11 and, you know, it would be done. The song would be done by like 5, you know.
Nice.
And it would just be like, well, like, so at 3:30, we're starting to think about like what's missing. How can we finish this up? But we wanted to make sure the majority of it would be done in one moment because it gives a kind of consistency to it. And we just always went with like our first instinct every time. And so it was like a very particular type of music that we started making. And I think that's why those records are so consistent. But he would also, once we had worked together a lot, he was sending me stuff. You know, he moved at one point. So we were doing things a bit more remotely, but the process was still there. But it varied. Sometimes he'd be giving me like some melodic stuff and vocals. Sometimes I'd be giving him a complete beat. Sometimes he would take my beat and like tell me that he pitched it down 2 steps and like slowed it down, and then I'd have to go and like fix it later. But yeah, I mean, it was sort of like first instinct stuff is like always the way that we work together. But it was always like really easy, you know?
Yeah, it just feels, you know, I think that's what gives it that airy, you know, uplifting texture. I
think like just those were the sounds that first instinct we would like. And so, you know, we never overthought it and said, we need this track or we need that. It's just that, you know, at one point we said, hey, we have like 12 or 13 songs. Like, let's pick our favorite and sequence it and make it happen, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, the only thing we would overthink is like what to pick for the single, which was always hard. But I feel good about both of our picks.
It seems like, I think one of you, didn't you just get played in Tonga like this week or something?
Yeah. So Maka's background is Tongan. And so the track that we have, Malie, is actually like bilingual and it's half in Tongan, half in English. And so that background is really important to him. And you know, it comes through in the lyrics and in the music. And you know, he recently had an opportunity to move out there for a while. And so, and brought the records to local radio on the island. So I guess they're playing those records now.
That's awesome.
I've been trying to get him to record it. He has not recorded it. But yeah, you know, I think it's really cool because it was, you know, a lot of our records are made with this place in mind and a place that he kind of spent time in growing up. And, you know, it's a special place and it really means a lot in our music. And it means a lot to me that music's finally being played in that place. And we're making more stuff, so I'm sending him stuff, and he's recording there too. But I don't know when he's going to be back, or I mean, I don't know when this is broadcast. Like, I'm not sure, like if he'll be back. Like, you know, he's on the island now, just sort of like, I don't know.
Maybe, dude, I think we just found your rollout for your album. I think it's a release party on the island. You know, if you can make it, cool.
Yeah.
Live stream for those that can't.
Yeah, right.
You guys record a new album while you're out there.
It's not a bad idea. My understanding is it's not an easy place to get to. I think that's why he is staying so long.
Oh, okay. But we want you back. Yeah, we don't want you.
We'll see, though.
Gone.
I'd love to go.
That'd be wicked fun.
Yes.
Let us know.
Yeah.
So I did want to loop back to the club thing real quick because you do have a lot of experience there. And I know you're not playing out as much, but you kind of have to have your, you know, fingers on the pulse.
Yeah.
What caught you off guard this year? What was the most surprising record to you this year that took off?
I mean, I think something that caught me off guard in a good way is that, you know, I'd say in the past like 4 or 5 years, there have been artists coming out of, you know, different countries in Africa making, you know, really great dance records, like sort of mid-tempo, but they're kind of like softer records. You know, they're not like big, heavy bangers. They're not like super aggressive lyrics or something. They're like love songs, you know, or it's just great dance music. And it was stuff that really caught my ear, you know, in like the mid 2010s, and I was listening to records from people like Afro B or Mr. Easy or Burna Boy or whatever. It would be like music I could sneak in here and there. But now seeing the past year that this music has truly like crossed over, and, you listen to, like Afro B's song this year was super huge, Drogba, that I played a version of in the mix I just did. But it's just cool to see. It's something that I really loved, and it's something that inspired Maka and I and our records. And so it's great to hear it like on the radio, or like every time I go to a club now, I'm hearing, Afrobeats kind of music. And I think it's great music, and I think more people need to hear it. And I think like it's just fun to dance to, and it makes me happy that that's crossed over. Like I've noticed I can play that at like peak hour, where before I could kind of sneak it in on the early side. It wasn't intense enough, It's great to know we're finally over this era where like the only music that goes off in the club is the biggest, craziest, loudest, most aggressive music possible, whether it's like Skrillex, EDM type stuff, which I love Skrillex, but like, or, even thinking about like the big records from like 2 Chainz or Rick Ross or something that were going off when I was like playing clubs in like the early 2010s, you don't need to hit people over the head so hard to get them to dance. And that makes me really happy.
Yeah. And you think it'll be around for a while? I
hope so. I hope that these guys get a permanent foothold in, North America. I mean, it's the UK. I think it's a little bit bigger. But I'd love to see these guys doing huge tours, in the United States and that type of music being consistent. But, this stuff always changes. People get bored of everything so quickly. I just hope that I think this music has staying power. And I think as long as the artists continue to evolve, which they seem to be, it'll keep being cool for them.
Yeah.
At least this year, it was cool to see like that music kind of get that mainstream acceptance that I think it deserves.
Nice. I'm glad you got to see that. I'm glad you were able to because you've probably been patiently waiting for this.
Yeah, right. And I mean, again, like we would put out a mixtape every time with the 2 Maka records. We did, releases with Bodega, Pirate Radio, where we would release like an hour mix that sort of put our record in context, right? And both of those records had a lot of music, whether it was, from Nigeria or from South Africa, but also, like some more like Caribbean music, like music from Jamaica, places like that. And, it was sort of in there. And I think that was like a little bit less familiar, in the context of other music that was popular at the time. But now I feel like if you listen to those, it would be like familiar vibes to people that are like going out in 2019. So it's cool. I mean, it's great for me because when I play, I can play a lot more music that I like, and not have to feel like I'm compromising so much.
Yeah, and it sticks with what you said earlier about how you want to work on things that you feel you can listen to 10 years from now and are good by being patient and, with your time back then. Yeah. The time has almost come back around for those records of yours.
Yeah. I mean, I think more about what I'm going to feel about my records in the future than I did when I was putting out music when I was 20. And to be honest, some of the music that I was like putting out in random places that thankfully no longer exist anymore, like it's not some of my favorite music, some of my early music. But now, you put music out, on SoundCloud. If one day you want to delete it all and make it go away, you can.
Yep.
But once you put music through like a distributor and it's on Spotify, like that's a lot harder to make it go away. And I think like now that that's the standard, and if you're a young artist that is just barely figuring out how to be in the world and you're putting out music in this very official like way, I mean, I just would encourage anybody to think about like in 10 years, this is going to follow me around, and like, am I going to be proud of it? And like, so when you're thinking about rushing to get something out, think instead about like the staying power of it. Cause again, like everything that is on Spotify for me right now, I'm super proud of, and I'm glad I took my time with it, and I'm glad I put it out the way I wanted to put it out. And yeah, so it's just on my mind lately as I'm getting old now, and I think about this stuff a little bit more.
I hear that. All right, final question. Some might say it's the most important one.
Okay.
You're here on LFOD radio.
Mm-hmm.
What does Live Free or Die mean to you?
Live free or die. I mean, I'm a fellow New Hampshireite. I don't know if that was necessarily the place that I wanted to stay. It definitely always felt kind of stifling for me as someone that I think is much more comfortable in a city than, in the woods somewhere. But, I think I still carry some New Hampshire kind of spirit. And for me, as an artist, I really don't like being put in a box. I don't like being pushed to be a certain way or look a certain way, or pressured to follow trends that I don't believe in or that I just don't like or I don't personally fit into. And, it's hard sometimes when you're trying to make something happen, when you're trying to make your career happen in music or art, like you're going to hit those points where, you're going to give up some creative freedom or some piece of yourself to try to move things forward. And I've certainly made compromises that, in retrospect, maybe I wish I didn't. Or, there are also points where I stood my ground and stuck with something and it paid off. And, again, now that I look back a little bit on 10, 15 years of doing this stuff, like making decisions to like maintain that creative freedom for yourself is the most important thing. And making sure that everything that you do is something that you wholeheartedly believe in and that you're proud of. Like, that's sort of what it means to me. I mean, that's what I'd rather, like, I don't want to say like I'd rather die than put out a bunch of stuff that I'm not proud of, but that feels true, like I'd rather lose an opportunity that doesn't feel right, that I wouldn't be proud of later, even if it's going to be a short-term benefit, because in the end, I'm doing music, I'm making art, and I'm DJing for the art of it, and because it's just an itch that I need to scratch, and it's a part of me, and so I try to keep that in mind.
I like it. Very thought out. I like it.
Great.
I like it. It's always a little bit more pressure because you are from New Hampshire.
I know. I don't have it anymore on the license plate, which is a bummer. Like, I have a Massachusetts license plate now, which is it's just not as cool.
I just got it back.
I mean, I'm surprised as a New Hampshireite you don't have a novelty license plate, which for those of you who don't know, people in New Hampshire love novelty license plates. I don't know if it's because they're very inexpensive or because the population is so low that you can get ones that you'd never be able to get in a big state, but everyone has a novelty plate.
Yep. The only other place I've seen anything like it is North Carolina. There's a ton down.
Interesting.
Or was it South? The Carolinas. Down south, there's another state that's like, they're not that expensive. No, I would, but like LFOD is obviously taken. And there's certain other combinations of LFOD that are available that I'm always on the edge. But I haven't quite found the right one.
Yeah.
They won't let me do LF0D. They won't let me do that.
Oh. That's lame.
Or maybe that's taken too. I don't know. But I rep it in so many other ways. Maybe I'll just we'll figure it out. But dude, thank you so much for coming through.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I appreciate it.
It's a lot of fun.
It's been great. I look forward to hearing your project. I look forward to whatever the release is. Keep us in the loop. I know you'll have clean records for us. That makes me happy.
I'll send you those. And I've got other production out there. You never know where beats and stuff are gonna pop up. But I've got music coming. So if you're waiting on it, it's coming. If you're not, it's coming. So
either way. And if you want to hear the mix that Durkin dropped right now, that's up on our YouTube. It's on mixcloud.com/LFOD radio. Or if you just go to LFODradio.com, it's going to be right at the bottom of the blog post about, Durkin. And it'll be on IGTV as well, probably split into a couple parts. And then we'll play the game of which songs trigger the content warnings.
Hopefully none. I was pretty careful.
I think you'll be good. So we'll be back next week with another episode. I would always suggest subscribing so you get that right away. We drop these in the middle of the night. It's worth subscribing on YouTube too because we drop a lot on there, and otherwise you have to wait for us to share it. We're at LFOD Radio on everything, LFOD Life on Facebook. I am on a road trip right now, so at LFOD Life on Instagram is probably going to be the place where you can see a lot of that if you want to tune in where I'm going. We'll be linking up with a ton of artists around the country, et cetera, et cetera. I got to give a shout out to our patrons. If you don't know what that means, check out patreon.com/LFOD life. We got a lot of cool stuff happening on there, including extra behind the scenes content from these episodes. Artists and managers, if you also have clean records, submissions at lfodradio.com. And we got to shout out the record company for the space today and Pavement Coffee for the caffeination. Check them out on Newberry Street. And shout out Thomas for making us sound good, helping us get these episodes clean. And A-Ball, Amanda, Christiana, and the rest of the squad. Live free or die.
That's right.